report as well as the warrant itself, Your Honor.
There was no proper foundation laid for that document, Your Honor, which was the basis of my objection.
For,
I believe
you mean number 19?
Yes, defense exhibit number 19.
I mean defense
Yes.
exhibit number 19. Well, isn't that one you withdrew?
Yes.
Maybe I wrote the note down wrong. Isn't that 19?
Yes.
I wrote the note that you withdrew it.
You want to say, Judge?
No. I thought you withdrew it because remember.
Oh, I withdrew it. I may have withdrawn it then. I'm offering it now. So.
Well, I'm going to sustain her objection.
Okay.
Well, sustain her objection right now.
All right, that's fine, Judge. No problem. Okay.
Thank you.
I have no other questions of defense counsel.
Now, may he be released and excused from his subpoena?
No objection from the state, Judge.
He may be released. He may not be excused.
All right, fair enough.
We may call him back.
No, I understand. I know everybody's going to be available to the end. You're released for the day. You are subject to recall. All right, just make yourself available. You aren't going out of town for the next week or two, are you?
No, sir.
All right, you can come on down.
Thank you.
All right, next witness, you're quite welcome. Next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Before we call the next witness, with the court's permission, we'd like to publish a clip.
From, yes.
States 11-2.
11-2.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, screens are available.
Do you remember telling police when they asked you if anybody was trying to break up your marriage? No.
On November 19th, is that what we're talking
Yes, they asked you, is anybody trying to break up your marriage? And you said no.
Yes, that's what I said.
Okay. We went through the emails
Yes.
that indicate he said, I love you.
Yes.
That indicate marry me.
Okay.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Did that not cross your mind that someone was trying to break up your marriage?
No, I'm a pretty, when it comes to relationships, Rusty's the only person I've ever been with, only person that I met him when I was 18. Not really savvy in relationship know-how, and was I naive in this situation? It's possible, but I really, that's not break up your marriage. Break up your marriage is, bust down into your house, I don't know, something like that.
If he asked you to marry him, if you were to marry him, you couldn't be married to Rusty.
Yeah, well, did I respond in any way?
I didn't ask if you were.
Okay.
The question from the police was someone trying to break up your marriage, and you said no.
That's correct. I did.
Why?
Because that doesn't seem like breaking up my marriage. It's not like he was doing something physical to break up my marriage.
All right, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State called Shaina Citron.
Your Honor, we have a brief moment to take up outside the presence of the jury.
Sure you can. Come on up, Lawrence.
Jeff Hellinger back with Stephen Byrne. And Stephen, I have to give you credit here. You said that Ms. Citron would be called as a witness today, and you had seen her earlier with her attorney and believed that that indeed would occur, and it looks like it is about to happen.
Well, I saw her come into the courthouse after lunch, and I was also convinced that as long as they got through the videotape interview before the end of the day, the state would want to end on a strong note, and I don't think there's any stronger note to end on today than Shaina Citron.
What do you think the expectation from her is?
This is going to be very tense. If there's going to be a lot of body language, I think, between Shaina Citron and Andrea Sneiderman. Don't forget, they were good friends. They hugged at the end of Andrea Sneiderman's testimony, and a year later, Shaina Citron is a witness for the state against Andrea Sneiderman.
It is just another one of those elements that has made this such a compelling case. From the beginning, the murder of Rusty in November of 2010 to today, it has taken on a lot of sidebars, a lot of unexpected sidebars.
And this is the kind of sidebar you would expect to have happen. This is an important witness. The defense probably wants to make sure that Shaina Citron doesn't say something that she is maybe prohibited by law from saying, and they just maybe want to make sure that all the ground rules are in place so there's nothing that happens in front of the jury that is inadmissible and illegal.
Could we see J. Tom Morgan in this?
That's a good probability. Shaina Citron is the kind of witness that you want to probably have somebody new handle, especially someone like J. Tom who has dealt with the public for so long and knows how to deal in these kind of situations.
What are they talking right now in front of Judge Adams about?
Well, I think there was some concern about the defense having the correct notice, the right amount of preparation for Shaina Citron to be a witness, and maybe to go over some questions that the defense thinks should not be asked in front of the jury, and getting the judge's ruling on some of this before the witnesses actually takes the stand. The other option is, of course, to have the jury removed from the courtroom and do this in open court. But as you've seen during the trial of this case, Judge Adams does not like to waste time. And when you have the jury taken out of the courtroom, it really slows things down.
And let's talk for a moment, if we can, for those who were not following the Hemi Newman trial, about Shaina Citron. And again, this sort of hug that turned into something much more than that. It was a sort of implied, don't tread on me.
That's right. And it was, of course, captured on tape, which just adds to the drama. And what happened is, after this embrace, there was I would say, some sort of an altercation or a disagreement about something outside the courtroom. And now it looks like the parties are finished up and we'll get back to the courtroom.
There we go.
The lawyers, call your next witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor, the state calls Shaina Citron to the stand.
Wonderful. Have her come in, please. Come on up, young lady. Follow the instructions of Deputy Garrett. This Deputy Garrett. Solemnly swear affirmatively that the testimony you shall give this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth shall be done. State, spell your name for the record.
Shaina Citron, Shayna Citron.
Good afternoon, Ms. Citron.
Good afternoon.
Need you to sit back and relax, and if you would scoot up to the mic for us. Do you know the defendant in this case, Andrea Sneiderman?
I do.
How do you know her?
We used to be friends.
How long were the two of you friends?
About the time that Rusty was murdered, we had been friends for about 8 years.
And how would you classify the type of friendship the two of you had back in 2010 and before?
And before?
Yes.
Well, Andrea and I were very close.
And when you say very close, tell us the type of relationship. Did the two of you, the types of things the two of you would do together or discuss together? Give us an idea of how close you were.
She was definitely one of my best friends, for sure. One of two of my best friends.
Who was the other one?
Joanna Genzer.
Okay.
Things that we used to do together. We did a lot of different things together. Our friendship started in book club, and we both used to live in the same subdivision.
Where is that?
In Smyrna, Vinings Estates, is the name of the subdivision. And again, met in Vinings Estates at a couple of book club meetings. And our relationship just grew from there. We started speaking on the phone, and we realized that we had a lot in common. We were going through a lot of the same things at the time, trying to start a family and so forth.
Okay. And so are you married?
Yes,
And do you have children?
yes.
Did your families interact? Yours and the defendants, did your families interact together?
Yes, quite frequently.
What types of activities did you guys do together as families?
Play dates, parties at our house. We spent time together with them at their lake house. Andrea and Rusty had a lake house. Always together for birthdays and celebrations, and she was at my first baby shower and helped give my second baby shower. Anything and everything best friends do together. And
Did you vacation together as well as families?
some, yes.
Where, if you know, did Rusty work during the time that you knew him?
Well, a couple of different places. Northwestern Mutual, J.P. Morgan, Discovery Point.
Okay. Do you know whether or not the number of jobs or the number of jobs that Rusty had affected the defendant in any way?
They did.
How?
They did. It bothered Andrea how Rusty would very frequently become, he would feel unsatisfied within his professions. He never felt like he was obtaining what he wanted to be obtaining. And there were definitely conversations about that.
Okay. When you say it bothered her, what do you mean by it bothered her? Did she discuss with you the feelings she had about the fact that he couldn't seem to find a job that satisfied him?
Yes, there was a particular lunch that we had together in September where she spoke very frequently about that.
Okay. What about the defendant? Did she have a job during the time that the two of you were friends?
Yes.
Was it a job that she did in her home, or was it a job where she would actually report to an office? And let me just break it down. When the two of you first met, was she working?
Yes,
And did she work out of her home, or did she report to an office?
out of her home.
And during the 8 years or so that the two of you were friends, did she work out of her home the majority of the time or all of the time?
The majority of the time until she started with GE.
Okay. So when she started with GE, do you know whether or not she had to report to an office at that time?
Yes, she did. That was a change for her.
When, if you know, did she start working at GE? What year?
2010,
Do you know?
I believe. I think it was.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I believe it was 2010.
Do you know how she felt about the fact that she was going to start this new job at GE?
She was excited. She was definitely looking forward to it and getting her wardrobe ready and up to speed since she had been working at home for so long. And I remember her going shopping and looking for appropriate clothing and shoes and so forth.
Is that something that the two of you shared together, or was it something that she shared that she was doing?
Just that she was sharing it with me. She was telling me about it.
Okay.
And more asking, if certain things were appropriate. Are open-toe shoes okay in the workplace now, and are they not? And maybe flat shoes would be a better option, those types of things.
So let me ask you, do you work?
I do.
And is your job in the home or outside?
I do some telecommuting, yes, from the home.
And back in 2010 and before, when the two of you were close friends, is it safe to say that you had more experience than she in the corporate environment?
I'm sorry.
Is it safe to say that you had more experience than she did in the corporate environment back in 2010 when she was asking your advice for certain things?
Well, no, at the time, we were both operating out of home offices, and we frequently discussed the trials and tribulations of that, and being a mother as well, and trying to get everything done. As far as me having more corporate experience, no, I wouldn't say that.
Okay, so it was just something that the two of you would talk about.
Right.
And she would ask your advice.
Mm-hmm.
You said the trials and tribulations.
That went both ways. I asked her advice as well.
You talked about the trials and tribulations of working at home and also being a mother.
Yes.
What types of discussions would the two of you have about those trials and tribulations?
Mainly how to get everything done in such a short amount of time when, are we talking about after we had children? Is that what you mean? Having a small window of opportunity to get everything we needed to get done while the kids were in school, that type of thing.
Okay. How would you describe Rusty and the defendant as parents?
Oh, they were great parents.
And did there come a time when you noticed a change in the division of labor between the defendant and Rusty as it related to Sophia and Ian?
Yes, definitely.
When was that?
When she started working at GE.
How did it change?
Well, their responsibilities and their relationship changed just out of pure necessity, because Andrea was now working, like we said, from a corporate office. Rusty at the time was working from his home office, I believe, and so he was picking up a lot of what used to be her responsibilities, because now all of a sudden she was traveling and she just had longer hours than they had been accustomed to her working without the flexibility of picking the kids up necessarily and taking them to activities and so forth. So he was taking the kids to, or taking Sophia to ballet and just all different sorts of activities, and the cooking became an issue, and shopping and dishes and things like that.
And prior to the defendant taking the job at GE, were those responsibilities things that typically she would have done?
Yes, for sure.
Now, I'm going to ask you this question in a two-part. Prior to the defendant taking the job at GE, how would you describe the relationship between both she and Rusty?
They had a very good relationship. They had a very good relationship.
Did there come a time, well, strike that. After the defendant took the job at GE in April of 2010, how would you describe the relationship that she had with Rusty?
It was definitely more strained for the reasons the reasons I was just telling you about, with the division of responsibilities and all of the traveling, and it definitely became more strained, and that became visible at a certain point as well.
It became visible to you?
Yes.
Tell us when you first visibly noticed the change in the relationship.
I think the first major change that I physically saw was in May of 2010.
And first, let me ask you, how do you know it was in May of 2010?
That's a good point. I'm pretty sure it was May of 2010, and
Okay.
the reason I'm relatively sure it was in May was because it was at a dance recital, and they are typically in May.
Okay. Whose dance recital was it?
Andrea's.
And so she had a dance recital?
Yes.
Did you go?
Yes, my husband and I went, Andrea she's a very good dancer, and always has been. And if any of you have ever been to a ballet recital, that maybe your children have been involved, oftentimes there's an older mom's group type thing, and Andrea was part of that mom's group, and she was definitely the youngest person on the stage when she was doing her dance, I believe. So when I say mom, I don't mean necessarily moms with younger children. Anyway, she was in the older group of the ballet dance recital. I believe Sophia had been at the same dance school, and also had a ballet recital either earlier that day or the day before. I can't remember, but.
Okay, what was the last question? What was it?
I would have to ask reporter to read it back, but
No,
I think we can move on,
Okay.
Judge.
Go ahead.
You told us that you first noticed a change in the relationship around the time of the dance recital.
Yes. Well,
what did you see? What made you say that the relationship between the two of them changed?
okay. Well, first of all, Andrea and I were very excited because ever since she started working at GE, we saw each other less frequently than we normally would have, just because her responsibilities changed and whatever. And I knew she was, working so much, and she even made comments to me that she felt badly. She didn't have even much time to practice for this dance recital. She felt like she was, going to let her group down type thing. And I said, oh, I'm totally going to that dance recital. I'm definitely going to be there. I can't wait to see this.
Did you go alone?
No, my husband went with me, and we were excited to be getting together, and we had planned to go out to dinner that night. It was myself, my husband, and Andrea and Rusty.
Okay,
and it was at that dinner that I saw for the first time that they were going through a rough time.
It was at the dinner after the dance recital?
After the dance recital that evening.
What was it that you noticed or that you saw that made you realize there had been a change between the two of them?
Well, for the first time, they almost felt awkward and uncomfortable together, which I had never seen before. It was very hard all of a sudden to get a conversation started. The dinner became very short. It was almost like they couldn't wait to leave, which was definitely not characteristic of how the four of us were together as couples.
And we've talked about this being in May after a dance recital. What year?
2010.
Okay. Now, after that dinner, did there come a time when both you and the defendant actually had a discussion about the tension in the marriage?
Yes.
Do you recall when it was the two of you had a discussion?
Well, there were several discussions throughout the summer, mainly about traveling and who was going to be keeping the kids, and Rusty and her parents helping, and you could tell that they were just trying to figure things out. But I guess the first main discussion where I realized that they were having serious problems was September 1st of 2010.
Okay. And you said that was the first time that you had a real discussion about it. Now let me ask you.
A real lengthy discussion where I realized that these issues were more serious than I maybe once knew.
When you said the first time you had a real lengthy one, did you have a discussion at some point prior to September of 2010 where the two of you actually sat down and talked about her marriage? And let me just, for purposes of being clear, did you invite the defendant and Rusty to your daughter's birthday party?
Yes.
And did the two of you talk at the birthday party?
We did.
And did you learn anything about some of the issues that she and Rusty were facing during that birthday party? And
More of the same. I guess what was more interesting to me about that birthday party, though, was she told for the very first time, she told our friend Joanna Genzer, she told Joanna for the first time that she and Rusty were having problems. And I guess it became just a little bit more real to me that they were having difficulties figuring things out.
And you mentioned to us earlier that the three of you, Joanna, and the defendant, all three were good friends.
We were.
Would you say that you were closer to one of the two of them during that time?
Well, I was very close with both of them, so I was very close with Andrea, I was very close with Joanna, Joanna and I were very close, and Joanna and Andrea were close but not as close as, I was sort of the link between the two of them, and I was the one who introduced the two of them.
Got it. And the conversation that the three of you were involved in, where you, for the first time, heard the defendant tell Joanna about the tensions, what month and year was that?
That was August of 2010.
Okay.
The birthday party was August 8th.
August 8th of 2010. Huh. So, after August, you told us that you had another more lengthy discussion in September. Tell us the circumstances about how the two of you came to even have a discussion. Where were you?
We were at Fuddruckers off of Powers Ferry, which was close to her office.
Okay.
When she started working at GE, one of the things Andrea and I spoke about was how exciting it was that her office was going to be closer to my home, so we would see each other more. But in actuality, we didn't see each other that much throughout the summer just because her life became so busy, which I certainly understood. She was, trying to get acquainted with new staff, new organization, and so forth.
So I take it you live close to me.
I do. So the purpose of that lunch was...
Well, let me back up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Before you move on, listen for a question. Who was present at the lunch?
Just she and I.
Okay. And what was the purpose of the lunch?
To catch up on the summer, what had been going on, just to get together since we hadn't seen each other that much throughout the summer. Because at my daughter's birthday party in August, it was crazy, and I don't know how many kids we had there, but it was, very busy, and had manicures going on for the little girls and jump house. And so it was just busy. We obviously didn't have a whole lot of time to spend together speaking.
So since you didn't talk a lot in August, you decided to get together, just the two of you in September.
Yes.
And have a lunch.
Yes.
And was this during her lunch break, or did you actually go together and have a lunch?
During her lunch break. We drove separately.
Drove separately.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what the two of you discussed during the lunch and in general?
In general, yes, I do.
Did you talk to the defendant about things that were going on in your life?
Yes. I would say the first half of the lunch was about what was going on in my life, my family, so forth.
And did you discuss things that were going on in her life?
We did. About halfway through, I sort of looked at her and like, oh my gosh, what's going on with you?
Kind of like, I've been talking about myself all this time. What's going on with you? Kind
Right,
of thing?
exactly.
All right. Did she tell you what was going on with her?
She did. She did.
Did the two of you discuss her relationship with Rusty during that lunch?
Mm-hmm. When I said, what's been going on with you, she said something like, well, Rusty and I are having major problems. And it was, when she said that, I almost was just like, okay.
Did she tell you what the major problems were?
it all stemmed around work, travel, picking up the kids, who was doing what. She started to mention there were grumblings at the house that, all this time that she is spending at work, but she's still not making the same amount of money that Rusty had been when he was working.
So, work, travel, money.
Yes.
When she told you about the major problems that they were having, did you make any suggestions to her?
I did. It seemed, from what she was telling me, it seemed like they were having many of their issues in the evening hours, so I suggested that they get a nanny to help out in the evening hours with the cooking and with the kids, dishes and so forth, because what she was describing to me was she would come home and the kids were obviously very excited to see her and they were rushing towards her, and instead of being able to make dinner, she was with the kids, and although of course she wanted to be with the kids, but it was just a struggle trying to get it all done.
Okay. So you recommended?
I recommended that she get a nanny to help out during those hours so that she could do what's most important, and that would be to be with the kids and be with her husband.
Do you know whether or not she took your advice?
She said she did. At that time, she said, well, that's a good idea. I'll talk to Rusty about it and see what he thinks, but I think that's a good idea.
And did you discuss with her work-related matters?
Yes.
And did you also kind of discuss with her the impact that work seemed to be having on her situation at home?
Yes.
Did you ever inquire whether or not work was worth what she was going through at home?
Yes.
And did she tell you whether or not it was still worth it?
Yes. So when she was describing all of these complexities, I asked her if it was all worth it. Are you happy at GE? Are you happy with your job? Are you happy with the travel? And she said, yes, I am. My whole life with Rusty has always been all about Rusty, but for the first time, I feel really good about what I'm doing. I feel good about the job. I'm important. I like the people that I'm working with.
And did she discuss with you whether or not she felt appreciated by her boss at work?
Yes. She said that he told her she was doing an amazing job. She's really making a difference. And then she also told me that he told her that he was in love with her.
She told you that at lunch?
She did.
What did you say when she told you that her boss told her that he was in love with her?
Oh my gosh, what do you mean? What do you mean he's in love with you? How do you feel about him? How bad is it with Rusty? What's going on?
And did she tell you how she felt about her boss?
She said that if, maybe if she had not been married, that she would be interested in him.
And did she tell you whether or not the fact that her boss told her he was in love? Well,
I'm going to overrule that objection. Let me let her finish the question first. But you can remain standing. Go ahead and finish the question.
do you know whether or not, well, strike that.
It's stricken.
Thank you, Judge. Did she answer the question that you asked her? When you asked,
Objection to that, Judge.
All right.
when you asked, what's going on with you and Rusty?
there came a point in that conversation that I said, are things that bad? Are you and Rusty going to get a divorce? I couldn't even believe I was saying that, you know, because they had been such a good team. She said to me that she would never divorce Rusty.
And do you know whether or not divorce was something that was a realistic option based on the Andrea that you knew?
Your Honor, that calls for...
Yeah, I'm going to sustain that objection. That's all it's speculation. Don't answer that question.
We'll move on. What led up to the defendant telling you that the boss told her he loved her? I mean, did it just come out of nowhere, or were the two of you having a discussion?
We were definitely having a discussion, and it was definitely, you know, centered around the travel, and she knew that I also travel for business as well. She asked me if anyone had ever hit on me during a business trip.
What'd you tell her?
I told her yes.
And did you tell her how you handled it?
Yes. I told her, you know, unfortunately it's sort of the nature of the beast. It does happen. You have to stay strong and stick to your guns. And the one thing I told her for sure, without a doubt, do not stay on the same floor in a hotel with someone that is hitting on you.
Why'd you stress that to her?
Because I knew that if she were to get off of an elevator and walk to her room and that person was there doing the same, it might become very uncomfortable if he would, you know, be walking her to her room. That might lend itself to an opportunity that married women shouldn't be involved in.
Did she ever answer the question that you asked her about her boss when you said, tell me about him, who is he? Did she ever answer that question?
At one point I remember asking her if he was good looking, you know, do you like him? You know, what are we talking about here?
Did she respond?
She responded, but she responded saying, you know, yeah, he's got dark features and he looks professional and so forth. But I remember me being very much on task of, let's get back to this discussion about what's going on with you and Rusty, because in my mind that was more important.
And did the two of you actually get back to the discussion about the defendant and Rusty?
We did, and it was strange because she told me some things that she had never told me before.
Were they things that had been going on, say, prior to the discussion that you were having?
Yeah, yes. We started talking about how, like I said before, everything in their married life had always been about Rusty. Whatever job he had, whatever problems were going on in his job, whatever you know the situation was with a boss or with a coworker, there was always something. Whether it was when he was in business school and Andrea was working, putting him through business school, it was always all about him. And in reference to business school, if it was a test, or if it was a study group or something, and she was the one working to support them while doing so, and she told me something that I was shocked about. She said that that her parents never wanted her to marry Rusty.
You had never heard that before?
I'd never heard that before.
And did she tell you why her parents didn't want her to marry Rusty?
Again, because everything was all about him, and she had previously had a relationship with some musician, and they almost would have rathered her marry him because he was more supportive of her.
Did she tell you whether or not, okay, did she tell you whether or not she was beginning to feel affected by...
Objection as to the leading judge.
I will sustain that objection. You want to rephrase?
Sure, Judge. Do you know whether or not the defendant was affected by all that she had to give to Rusty during the marriage?
Yes. After that lunch, I walked out thinking, oh my God, Andrea has checked out of this marriage. She was speaking about Rusty. Her eyes were dark and cold. When she was speaking about her boss, who I did not know his name at that point, and she was speaking about her boss, her eyes were sparkling.
So after you had the discussion with her, well, let me back up. How long did this conversation last?
It was about a 2-hour lunch. We thought it was going to be, just, a 1-hour lunch break type lunch.
So it ended up being longer than planned.
It did.
After the 2 hours, did the two of you go your separate ways? Did you go back to lunch, back to work, and you back home or wherever?
I went straight to my mother's house, my parents' home. And I just remember laying on the sofa, just staring up at the ceiling fan, that's exactly what I told her, is that Andrea had checked out of her marriage.
You told who that?
My mother, who loved Andrea also.
Did you tell anyone else about the conversation you had with the defendant that day at lunch?
My husband, that night.
What'd you tell your husband?
The same thing.
Do you recall when you next saw the defendant after that lunch on September 1st, 2010?
The next time I saw Andrea was at another lunch in the same area but a different restaurant. I think it was Houlihan's or Houston's. I think it was either Houlihan's or Houston's. I can't remember. It was off of Powers Ferry, and it's no longer there.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It was a lunch to celebrate my birthday.
So when was that? What month? When's your birthday?
Also in September.
Okay.
My
Still in the same year?
Same year.
2010?
Same year.
Okay. Who was present at your birthday lunch at Houston's?
It was myself and Andrea and Joanna Genzer.
So this time you had an extra person.
Correct.
At the time of your birthday lunch, do you know whether or not she had do you know whether or not she had any trips scheduled for work?
That we were talking about at that lunch?
Correct.
Yes.
What did you all discuss at the lunch?
She was getting ready to go to London for work, and she was excited about the London trip. I don't think she had ever been. She had never, she was excited about going to a particular castle. I don't remember which one. She was excited about going to dance clubs since they're known for those, and again, she's a very good dancer. I remember her asking both Joanna and I if it was appropriate for her to dance at a dance club with a coworker. And Joanna and I were...
Tell us what you said.
I'm sorry. I said, yes, of course. It just depends on how you're dancing. And,
What do you mean by that?
well, dancing can be just regular dancing, or it can be risque. And I was certainly referring to just regular dancing would be fine, but if it was risque, that would not be okay.
During that conversation, did she tell you who would be accompanying her to England?
I don't recall if she told me at that lunch it was her boss, but I had known it was her boss. Either she had told me on a phone conversation, or maybe she had told me at the prior lunch. I can't remember, but I knew that it was the boss that she was going to be going with, and her boss, her boss was Hemi Newman, but I didn't know him as Hemi Newman then. I knew him as her boss. I didn't know his name.
She didn't tell you his name?
I don't recall her telling me.
Okay.
You know what? She may have, but it didn't stick. I don't recall that.
Okay.
Oh, but I don't think that Joanna did not know that it was the boss. She thought that it was just a coworker.
What, if anything, did she tell you about any trip she had taken prior to the trip with England? Excuse me, the trip to England.
She had told me about trips, but nothing specific about them.
So when you all discussed dancing and whether or not it was appropriate to dance with coworkers, had she shared with you up until that point the fact that she had actually gone dancing with Hemi Newman prior to the trip to England?
No.
Did you know any details about any of the trips she had taken before this trip to England?
No. Well, that's not true. At one point, she did tell me that she had enjoyed meeting the people that, I think there were like one or two people that worked for her that were in different countries. So at some point, I remember her saying that she was either excited to meet them or was glad to meet them, but I don't remember any other specifics other than that.
Okay, so the fact that she was kind of able to meet people that she worked with that were located in other places.
Mm-hmm.
Did she ever discuss with you dinners that she had on her business trips?
No. Mm-mm.
Did she ever discuss with you?
The jurors give me a note. They want do me write a note and give it to my deputy on what you. I saw the signal that you. I know. I saw it. But I know. Cut it off. But writing. All of you, whoever wants to write a note, because several of you, I know what cut off means. I understand. Just write it up, put it in written form, so I'll make sure I'm understanding what you're communicating. But I want you to listen while you may continue.
Thank you, Judge. Did she ever talk to you about any situations that she had encountered on any of her business trips as it related to her boss, who you now know to be Hemi Newman?
No, nothing specific. The only thing was, have you ever been hit on? That was the only thing that I remember her asking me in specific, but no.
Okay. You want me to continue, Judge? I was going to transition.
I can multitask. I can read and listen.
No, I'm
you
just
keep going.
transitioning.
No,
Okay.
Keep going.
All right. Did there come a time where you had an occasion to go to the defendant's job at GE?
Yes.
Tell us what led to you going to her job.
All right. It's been communicated to me very clearly. They're ready to go home. Well, they're ready to leave this building.
Yes.
So I'm going to honor that because I need them to be attentive and listen to everything that is being said. So that last question, you can repeat that first thing tomorrow morning. So just make a note on your ledger. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got your communication. I fully understand that you are done for the day, but no, don't. I got to give you these instructions. I know you're ready to go, but be patient with me. Let me give you these instructions. Do not discuss the case or allow anyone to discuss the case with you. Do not remain upon the floor once you are released. Do not go upon the internet and do any research about this case. Do not look at any media coverage pertaining to this case. Do not blog about this case while it's ongoing. As I indicated, all the evidence will come to you in the form of sworn testimony and or any physical evidence that's been introduced during the course of the trial. I do want to thank you in advance for your patience and your understanding because we are going through this process. You're more than welcome to bring something to snack and or eat with you during the session. Do not consume any alcoholic beverages during the lunch breaks. You're more than welcome to check your smartphones, iPhones, and iPads and things of that nature during this break. The other issue, I saw the other note, that you're going to have to resolve that either before you come see me tomorrow morning or during the break, the secondary note. But I understand. The person who wrote a different note. They understand. I'm just looking at all of you. But you're going to have to do that either before you come see me tomorrow, and I'm going to give you the time, or during that break. That's what that's designed for you to handle those type of things. And I understand the communication, but that's exactly what it means. Before you get I won't say get to work, but before you get here, you have to do certain things. During that break, you have to do certain things, and then in the evening, you can do certain things. So that's your time. But between those other hours, this is my time with you. So we're going to have to be together during this time until we finish all of this. And I understand the written communication as clear as I can communicate to you. As I may have mentioned, the lawyers and the parties cannot talk or interact with you. We're going to reconvene at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Now, if there are any other communication that you need, just give it to my deputy. But we're in recess at 9 o'clock. All right.
So there it is. Our day has ended inside Cobb County Court. I'm Jeff Hullinger along with the attorney Stephen Byrne, a defense attorney who has been with us since 8:45 this morning. It has been quite a day for about 90% of the road was quite dry, 3.5 hours of testimony that was basically replaying a DVD of the Dunwoody detective and Andrea Sneiderman from 2 weeks after the murder of Rusty Sneiderman. But then we have seen Shaina Citron on the stand, and that has been today's headline, the former friend of Andrea Sneiderman, who had some very dramatic things to say today.
Wow, this last hour of testimony is something that people will be remembering tonight and certainly into tomorrow morning. The jury really was given some dramatic testimony by probably the person that was closest to Andrea Sneiderman other than her husband. She gave the jury information that only someone who is a best friend can give, someone who is a true confidant, and someone who knows the inner workings of Andrea Sneiderman's mind.
Shaina Citron was crying on the stand you saw a few minutes ago. saying that talking about Rusty, Andrea's eyes were dark and cold. When she was speaking about her boss, Hemi Newman, her eyes were sparkling, saying that it was at that time a 2-hour lunch that she realized that Andrea had checked out of her marriage, end quote.
Talking about painting a picture, as an attorney, what you want to do oftentimes is show a jury something, and not just with words, but so that they can actually picture what's going on. And I think that Shaina Citron, through her testimony, was able to do that by her own words, where you can almost see the color in Andrea Sneiderman's face from one point to another.
You were right on with two predictions today. One is you predicted that Shaina would indeed be on the stand, which was correct. It came at a very late hour in the day. And your other prediction that we saw come to fruition is when J. Tom Morgan stood up to voice an objection. That was a signal that we will see him cross-examine Shaina Citron.
That's right. It is a general rule in the courtroom that the attorney who makes the objection is the attorney who will conduct the cross-examination. So without being directly told so, I think we all know that J. Tom Morgan, former district attorney of DeKalb County, will be cross-examining Shaina Citron sometime tomorrow.
We also heard from Shaina Citron today that she says that Andrea Sneiderman told her that if she had not been married, she would have been interested in him being Hemi Newman.
That's powerful testimony. This goes directly into the state's theory that Andrea Sneiderman was having an affair with Hemi Newman, and the affair started right before Andrea Sneiderman's husband's murder.
Shaina Citron also said that Andrea told her that she and Rusty were having major problems over work, over travel, over money. And those issues that really came to a boil was September of 2010. That would have been roughly 2 months before the murder of Rusty Sneiderman.
Right, but what's interesting is that, again, Andrea Sneiderman is not charged with murder. She's not charged with aiding or abetting or helping Hemi Newman commit the murder. She's charged with lying about her relationship with Hemi Newman. And this testimony is very much helpful to the state in proving that theory that the state has been given so far.
As we have been on television over the last 8.5 hours talking here, we've taken a lot of your emails, a lot of your tweets as well. I want to apologize. In the last couple of hours, my email has been down, that we received so many emails that it may have jammed up the server, for lack of a better technical explanation. But nonetheless, we'll try to get those to tomorrow. And again, you can send me an email at jhullinger@11alive.com, or you can reach out to me on Twitter, and that is at 11Hullinger, Hullinger. I promise we have plenty of time tomorrow. We will try to get to your questions and to make sure that you get an answer to your question, and all of that will be coming up tomorrow.
And I've also agreed to answer questions directly from you. If you want to email me directly at atlantalaw@bellsouth.net, or you can leave me a question on my webpage, which is berne, law.com.
Stephen, we always enjoy having you here. I want to thank you for being here all these hours and listening to the testimony and sitting with me here under this tent in the hot sun. It has been very, very interesting, and I know that all of our friends that are watching are very appreciative of your talents too, to kind of break down and explain some of this legalese so that we have a better understanding of the play-by-play and the analysis of what is transpiring inside the courtroom. So again, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Please don't bill us for all of your time. That's all we ask.
This is my pro bono work of the day.
And I know you think the Braves are going to continue to win, so we like hearing that.
I'm not worried about the Braves at all.
Okay. All right. We have news coming up on 11 Alive. That is at 6 o'clock. Then at 7 o'clock with Brenda Wood and her show. Judge Hatchett will be on board. And coming up tonight, The Rundown at 10 o'clock on my ATL TV, Channel 36. The Rundown at 11 o'clock on 11 Alive. We will have a compendium of all the day's events, not only in the courtroom, but what is going on in news around town, around the region, around the country, and everything else. So that's it for us for now. We will see you bright and early tomorrow morning around 9 a.m. right here for 11 Alive's continuing coverage of the trial of Andrea Sneiderman. Have a great night, and we will see you over on 11 Alive in about 37 minutes.